We are Social Blade.
Social media itself is the catalyst, in my opinion, to be able to open up communication amongst the masses and make it to where there's so much more transparency. And as those who know, in politics, transparency is almost a four-letter word. I don't know how they squeeze all 11 letters into four, but somehow, if anybody can do it, it's politicians. So here's the premise. I was reading a story on Mashable about how candidates are going online and being more open with it, and I started thinking, wow, these are the kind of candidates that I want. So I wrote up a nice long story. You can find it at socialblade.com/show about how if politicians, both candidates and current politicians, used social media, particularly Facebook and or Twitter, and especially YouTube, to keep us abreast of their activities, their plans, their goals, the roadblocks that are in the way, then everyone will be so much happier. And that's the guy and or girl that I'm going to be voting for in each particular thing. Obviously, their opinions matter as well. I'm not going to vote for somebody who crosses away from my core political standpoints. But I do want to see openness. It's always been so challenging for the government to be able to communicate to the people, for the politicians to be able to let the people know what we're doing, and more importantly, for the people to be able to communicate to their elected officials how they feel and what they think. You know, it used to be you'd have to go visit them, you'd have to call them, you'd have to send them a mail. You don't know if you're getting through. There's no direct interaction. Well, guess what? Nowadays, you've got social media. So if a politician wanted to, they could take all of their actions, throw it up on their Facebook, and get responses. Hey, guys, I'm wanting to, here's the bill. The bill basically looks like this. Click on this link to see what it's all about, and then tell me what you think. Is this right or is this wrong? Is this going to be good or bad? That's what I want to see. But that's what I'm going to ask you guys. Why isn't government more social, and should it be, or is that a big mistake?
No,
I don't think it's necessarily a big mistake, but I can see why they haven't gone for that angle as of yet, because, you know, they're so private when it comes to the competition and not wanting to have the other candidate to have any information that they could possibly use against them, because that seems to be the game. But I think that's the way they need to go. I think that it's going to change. I mean, social media is going to change and invade everything that we do. And I think that they're going to have to change the way they compete, and hopefully this will lessen the horrible competitions that go on within elections, and perhaps more so focused on reaching out to the public and staying social with us and earning our vote that way. So I really loved your story, JD. It was really well written.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I think the thing that was interesting, too, is the transparency that you talked about. I think a lot of times people in the public eye might just kind of put it up for show along the lines of, well, you know, doing this major event, you know, or tweeting or Facebooking, something that's kind of mundane, but not really getting into the depth of what's going on in their minds or what's going on in their thoughts. And I think that needs to change as well. It's not just being on social media, but being transparent through that social media in a way that's believable.
Absolutely. See, that's funny because that's something that I don't think I portrayed very appropriately in the article. I'm not looking for who's most active on Facebook or most active on Twitter. You know, there's a lot of politicians that are out there, especially those who are running for office, that are doing it. My point is, if you're going to do it be completely 100% transparent. In other words, if you have a campaign promise. We'll start off with those who are campaigning, who are not necessarily elected officials, but who are in the middle of a campaign, whether they're in office or not. You know, before you can make campaign promises, it goes on television. Some people will talk about it, some people won't. But there wasn't a true centralized area where a candidate could say, "This is what I'm going to do. If you elect me, I want to do this, 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 and this, and I want your responses." Or if you elect me, I'm considering doing this, but I want to make sure that the people believe that this is the right thing to do. So please help me out, governed by the people. And we've never been able to do it. Yeah, there's websites that talk about this stuff, that show everybody's platforms and everything, but there's no engagement on these particular websites. And usually it's either the candidate's website, him or herself, or it's a third-party website that puts everything together. I want to be able to go to local councilwoman A, her area, and see everything that she said, have a consolidated point on Facebook specifically where I can see what is she about, and how does she react if I say, no, 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 I don't want you to shut down the ice cream parlor down the block from the liquor store. You know, I like that ice cream parlor, and so back off the ice cream parlor, lady. You know, I want to be able to say that and see how she responds.
So
I want everything on there.
JD, are there any people that you know that are doing this right now?
Slowly but surely, it's starting to emerge. But again, it hasn't been like Mashable pointed out. One gentleman, and I don't have the computer in front of me to see it, so I forgot his name. But that was where the idea sparked. Like, wow, okay, so this guy's saying, here's what I think. What do you guys think? And he's getting responses. And he had like after he didn't have a ton of fans. I think he only had like 4,000 or 5,000 fans. But when I looked at this thing, he had, out of those 4,000 or 5,000 fans, he would post a question, and he would get like 120 comments. And I was reading through the comments, looking, expecting it to be planted stuff. You could tell there were some, hardcore supporters in there saying, whatever you want to do, Bob, you're the man, But then there were others that were like, well, Bob, that's great. I appreciate this, this thought, but have you considered this possible consequence of going down the road? And Bob would respond, or at least somebody from Bob's office would respond and say, that's a good point. Here's why we think that it's worth the risk. That's open communication with your constituents, with your people, publicly, for anybody and their moms to be able to see. They can respond if they like, or they can follow it. And guess what? A year and a half from now, after Bob's elected and he's been in office for a year, then they can say, hey, Bob, guess what? You didn't follow through with this. What's going on? And Bob will be able to say, oh, I am following through with it. You just haven't seen it behind the scenes. But we have a big announcement. We have a bill that's going to be introduced on March 23rd. So keep your eyes open. This is the date. I'm setting it as an event, as a matter of fact. March 23rd, we're going to be making this bill public for debate. So blah, blah, blah. Government can run so easily from social networks, it's not even funny.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with you. I think it would be extremely beneficial for them. They can utilize on Facebook, events and communication with people that they want to vote for them. But I think that they're so afraid because, it's that part of government that they want to stay. It's funny because it's like they want your vote, but they want to stay as disconnected as they possibly can. So, when they make those promises and they don't follow through, it's almost like, oops, you're already stuck with me. And so for them to have to then answer to actual people, I think that's what it's going to prevent them. I think that's what they're going to stay afraid of.
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
That's part of it too. I think the one thing that's interesting that kind of plays into what you're talking about, some of the things that have been coming out in recent experiments about how people make attributions and judgments about other people on Facebook. Traditionally, we look at things and we look at somebody. If we want to know how nice they are, maybe we watch them with other people, or we get to learn about people by either talking to them or sitting back and watching or asking another person. But it's kind of funny, the strange thing that seems to be happening in some of these experiments is third-party information is becoming the thing where people make judgments. So, for instance, the one experiment found that people were rated on their socialness based on not what they said as status is or what they had in their profile, but what other people were saying about them. Same with attractiveness. You can find the best picture of yourself. And the thing is we've evolved at a point where we understand that that picture is your best picture, but what do your friends look like? And that's actually was the takeaway from the experiment, which is kind of interesting. But I think that plays into what you're talking about with politicians, as far as finding out how content their constituents might be with them. If there's a bunch of people that are questioning the authority of that person or supporting them, that might give some cues as to what public opinion is about that person.
Amanda wrote, do you think the government would use social media the way it should be used? Or would they misuse it and eventually give it... Sorry?
Okay, keep going.
Okay. Or would they misuse it and eventually give it a bad name because she believes it'll be tainted? And Red Wolf Media says everything has been edited and sugar-coated by government. So do we think that if the government decided to get extremely active on our social networks, would it taint what social networking is really about?
The government can't hurt social networking. They can hurt themselves through social networking. But keep in mind, the whole concept and everything that's currently behind social networking is the idea is that it gives the power to the people themselves. Now, yes, there are ways to manipulate it. Yes, there are ways to get around it. In the end, pretty much every attempt to paint social media for what it is has always been foiled by the people themselves. If the government, the reason that the government isn't as active, the reason that Barack Obama sent his first tweet years after he supposedly had his Twitter account, the reason that they don't want to do it is because it's an it's an exposure that they don't have 100% control over. The reason that I had written the article, it's not that I believe that it will happen. I know that some people will do it, some people will embrace it, especially on the local level, which is where it has the potential greatest impact, or not greatest impact, but at least to where the individual people will have the greatest control over it. But once you get into even the national level, that's where, if it is done right, if you find a congressperson or a senator who is able to implement it and work it properly, if they have to go in with two expectations. They're going to be trolled no matter what, and they have to be held accountable as a result of this. So to go in and do it half-heartedly, to go in and do it scared, it's going to take somebody with a whole lot of gumption and fearlessness, because they're going to be exposing themselves to potential negative, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a chance that it could, quote-unquote, backfire on them unless they go full force. If they go full force and they're completely open, completely transparent, completely engaged with their community, then they're bulletproof. They are social media bulletproof, because at that point, even the trolls can no longer hurt them. They can address them, and this is what I tell people. When I'm talking about Facebook in particular, I tell people, be open, be transparent, and expect there to be negative. Address the negative appropriately. Don't just jump in there and delete everything. Don't just jump in there and get all upset. If there's somebody spamming your Facebook page, yeah, okay, so you can dump them. But if somebody just has a dissenting view, don't dump them. Don't address them. And if they continue to have a dissenting view, agree to disagree. And then if they continue to have a dissenting view, guess what? The people that really matter, the people that are active and either agreeing with you or at least talking with you via social media in a way that allows them to be productive, these people are the ones that are going to see through the troll. Give a troll an opportunity to expose themselves as they're trying to expose you, because it will happen. Will it taint social media? Absolutely not. The idea that the government can do anything outside of actual tampering with the site. Now, sure, they can go through and pass laws, as Canada is very, very clearly and actively working against Facebook, potentially even in court, to try to stifle some of the things that they're doing that are inappropriate. But unless the government were to step in and say, look, we're shutting this down, or you can't do this, you can't do that. If they were to do something like that, yes, they could affect it. But then being involved in social media and engaged and transparent, all of these beautiful words that we've been saying throughout the show, if they do that, then there's not going to be any negative impact on social media itself. There's the potential negative impact on their own careers, on their own agendas, but it's the risk that they need to take. Because if their opinions are right, if the goals are proper, if they can communicate it properly through social media, then they cannot fail. They cannot lose, unless they have just some wacky, lame ideas, such as closing down the ice cream store down the block from the liquor store. That's craziness. I can't believe that somebody's going to do that. Actually, I don't think anybody's going to do that. I made that up.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I hope that it has answered some questions.
Invading the internet, covering Web 2.0, coast to coast, worldwide, and everywhere in between. This is where you put the social in social media. We are Social Blade.